One of the biggest musical surprises of the year dropped out of nowhere, reminding all of us that true rock and roll is alive and kicking in 2024. Hi everyone, I'm Paul Crayson and you're watching Music Mentions. I'm back today and I'm doing a deep dive review of Jack White's new album simply titled No Name. As my regular viewers know by now, I like to dig into an album much more than your typical reviewer. This means I'm going to cover some info about the band, go over some release notes, the track listing, song lengths, album title and cover, general album observations, the individual songs, and then an overall wrap-up and an album rating. First of all, let's talk about the band. Of course, we have Jack White. He's 49 years old and burst onto the music scene with the seminal two-piece Detroit garage rock band, The White Stripes, whose first album was released in 1999. The White Stripes released an additional 5 studio albums before breaking up in 2011. Since then, Jack White has enjoyed a successful solo career. While in the White Stripes, he also began 2 other notable bands, the Raconteurs and the Dead Weather. He's also collaborated with and produced other artists and has generally been one busy guy over the last 25 years. He's best known as a songwriter and a fiery guitarist, but he's also a decent drummer. As a matter of fact, he was the drummer in the Dead Weather. As a live performer, he's a powerful and singular performer, as anyone who has seen him on stage can attest to. On No Name, he's assisted by several folks, but most notably, Dominic Davis. He's 48 years old and is the bassist on most of No Name. He's a well-regarded studio musician, also from Detroit, that has worked with Jack on several of Jack's solo albums, as well as being the primary bassist in most of the touring lineups. And then we have Patrick Keller. He's also 48 years old and is the drummer on all but one song on No Name. He's originally from Cincinnati. He has played on other solo Jack albums and is the drummer for the Raconteurs. Now for some release notes. This album was released on July 19th, 2024 and is Jack White's 6th full album of original studio material as a solo artist. It was released on Jack's own Third Man Records. It was also produced by him. The album was mixed by Jack and Bill Skibby. Mastering was done by the legendary Bernie Grundman. There were no singles released prior to the album release, which leads us to an interesting story of how this album actually arrived on the scene. On January 19th, a subredditor on the Jack White Reddit group posted that while he was getting a t-shirt at the London Third Man store, that the cashier put an album in his bag. When asked, the cashier said he didn't know what it was, just that they were told by management to give these albums out to customers. The album was in a plain white sleeve with only the words No Name printed on one of the record label sides. Soon, word got out that it was a new Jack White album. Then an Instagram post by Third Man Records came out saying, "Rip it." Quickly, YouTube was flooded with ripped audio of the album from folks that got a copy of the free vinyl. Due to the sound of the album, many speculated that it may be a new or previously unreleased White Stripes album. Then on July 27th, at a benefit concert in Nashville, Jack told the crowd that there was something special at the merch table to pick up after the show. This was a blue vinyl version of the album, but this time it included credits and the song names. Then on Wednesday, July 31st, word got out that the album would be released digitally on Friday, August 2nd to streaming services. By the way, those original plain white albums, originally given away for free, have sold at auctions on eBay for anywhere between $500 to $700 as of the recording of this video. No doubt these will be highly valued collector's items going into the future. Now let's look at the track listing and the song lengths. There are 13 songs on No Name. Bombing Out and Missionary are tied for the shortest songs, each both at 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Tonight Was a Long Time Ago is the longest at 4 minutes and 15 seconds. The overall album length is 43 minutes and 15 seconds. And now let's dig into the album title and the cover. The album title is No Name and is about as plain of a title as you can think of. Its very basicness is probably the point, considering the music itself is stripped down and raw with little to no sonic adornments. The title will also probably serve to keep folks remembering the whole unusual release story for years to come. Now let's talk about the album cover. Essentially, there are only two elements to the cover, the dark blue color and what appears to be a textured landscape of some kind. There's no mention of the artist or the title or anything else, really. Like the album title, the cover is basic, simple, and unadorned. However, there are a couple of interesting factors with the cover. Number one is that the color blue figures prominently on most of Jack's solo albums. When he went solo, he chose a basic color palette of blue, black, and white, as opposed to the White Stripes palette of red, white, and black. Of course, the blue used for No Name can be easily interpreted as standing for blues-based music, too, which is accurate for this album. The other factor related to the cover is the textured picture that was used. Although there hasn't been confirmation yet, this appears to be a section of a photo that Jack posted on his Instagram account on April 13th about the rock rubble field that lays directly below the Mount Rushmore monument. The post is Jack basically questioning why this rubble field has never been cleaned up, calling it possibly, quote, the largest monument to littering the world has ever seen, unquote. How this relates to the album itself is hard to determine. It may simply be an analogy to the rock music contained therein, or maybe he is trying to suggest to us that he considers the music to just be litter. I assure you that the latter is not the case. Anyway, for such a simple cover, it appears there's more behind it than initially meets the eye. Now for some general album observations. Considering the nature of the music, the recording quality for this type of record is great. This is a high-energy record that delivers a punch along with amazing guitar sounds. It's a record that you listen to for the visceral impact rather than something designed to wow you over headphones with carefully designed sonic production effects. Although the album is essentially a garage rock record, it's not sloppy or lazily played. The instruments and vocals are balanced well, and there's a palpable sense of spontaneity to the playing, but it's also clear that the band knew exactly what they were doing with each and every song. The overall sound vibe of this release is high-energy rock with real heart and soul behind it. Now let's dig into those individual songs, starting with Old Scratch Blues. We start off with just a simple and sliding guitar line before the drums and bass kick in with some force. The bass, by the way, is played by Jack's wife, Olivia Jean. Instantly, we're plunged into a mid-tempo, head-nodding heaviness. The song is very dynamic as it takes us from subtle valleys to explosive peaks several times throughout it. There is an almost heavy metal chewiness to the rhythm guitar, and Jack singing with a restrained anger bubbling underneath the surface. The last part of the tune then dials up the energy with pounding drums, what sounds like some violent organ stabs, and Jack's signature squealing guitar tone that he's so famous for. You know, that high-pitched octave effect thing. Let's go over the lyrics from the first verse. Jackie said she warned you, so tell me how you're gonna be. She's acting like she owned you, dethroned you, but nothing in the world is free. I think I need a tailor. This happens to me all the time. I'm cursing like a drunken sailor. I'll trade a nickel for a dime anytime. Old Scratch is a folkloric nickname for the devil, originating from an early American folklore in the South. Knowing this, we can assume that Jack may be playing the role of the devil in this tune. Of course, the devil is a common theme in the blues, so it looks like Jack is continuing this tradition. The lyrical theme of this tune seems to revolve around the concepts of distrust and of selling one's soul. This is an explosive start to the album. This song just oozes with a heavy, bluesy ferociousness and passion that we haven't really heard from Jack since the White Stripes days. It's simply a brilliant track that is infinitely listenable. Next we have Bless Yourself. The intensity continues here with a simple but driving shuffling guitar that is the backbone of this tune. It's the train track that all the other instruments ride on top of. Jack's voice and delivery occasionally reminded me of Zach De La Rocha's vocal style from Rage Against the Machine. Jack's delivery here is often not dissimilar from what you'd imagine a rock and roll preacher to sound like. Like Old Scratch Blues, the outro ramps up the energy with some delicious additional guitar fuzziness. Let's look at the first chorus. People say, I need God on command, God on demand. If God's too busy, then I'll bless myself. All these people saying, call your own shots. They're not robots. They want no roadblocks. They are a team unto themselves. They say, I don't answer to anybody but myself. Here we have another religious theme. This time it appears that Jack is telling us to trust and bless ourselves when God doesn't seem to be around when we need him. I interpret this tune as one about belief in yourself, basically self-reliance. Not as varied and melodic as Old Scratch Blues, Bless Yourself is nevertheless a powerful and groovy track. Jack's vocals are the highlight for me as he sings with tremendous power and force. Song number 3 is That's How I'm Feeling. This song starts with a simple repeating bass line and drum pattern, and you'd think that Jack is going to chill out a bit after the 1-2 punch from the first two tunes. But you'd be wrong, because the chorus comes in and slams us with some fuzzed out punk-flavored guitar chords. The song plays back and forth between the quieter verses and the headbanging explosions of the choruses. Olivia Jean shows up on this one, but this time she's handling the drums, not the bass. Here are the lyrics from the second verse. And when I see you at night, I need an electric light. And when you call me at home, you only hear a dial tone. When it's cold outside, I need the strength to stay alive. And when I'm in my home, I need the strength to be alone. The contrast between the lyrics and the choruses musically comes through lyrically as well. The theme here appears to be a struggle between external challenges like the cold from the outside and internal challenges like being alone with one's own disturbing thoughts. It's a song about being resilient. I love the dynamics of this tune and how it throws you around from quiet to loud and back and forth. Jack's vocals are simply fantastic, and his energy during the choruses is just palpable. I love this one. Next is It's Rough on Rats, If You're Asking. Once again, Jack plays around with the dynamics as the song takes us through a bit of a roller coaster ride with descending guitar chords and some really cool drum patterns. We get a nice little slidey guitar figure that tracks with the vocal melody, and there's even a bit of a squealy freak-out guitar solo to mix things up even more. Jack also tastefully employs the wah-wah pedal at one point that adds a great texture to everything. Here's one of the pre-choruses. As bad as we got, it sure must be rough on rats. The world is worse than when we found it. Sure must be rough on rats. If we're not eating, then they must have it rougher than us. I'm sure of that. But I should stop complaining every time it's raining, 'cause I'm still not food for cats. Ask me. Jack seems to be thinking how, regardless of how hard life can be on us humans, that it must even be worse for the lowly rats that we share the planet with. It's a metaphor for acknowledging that the suffering of other beings is often worse than the complaints we personally come up with. In a weird way, it could be interpreted as a song about being grateful that things aren't worse than they really are. This song doesn't quite have the same visceral impact as the earlier tracks, but it certainly has its charms, especially that guitar solo and the slide guitar figure. This is just another solid tune. Next we have Archbishop Harold Holmes. We now enter into a slightly different territory based on two main factors. Number one, we are hit by an almost metal-sounding muted guitar shuffle rhythm with a really strong bass foundation. And by the way, Jack's teenage daughter Scarlett handles the bass on this one. And number two, Jack is fully embracing his rocker as preacher rap mode as he spits lines at us like he's possessed by the Holy Spirit of rock and roll. There are a couple of breakdowns that temporarily halt the chugging rhythm that adds some variety, as well as a short Jimmy Page-inspired guitar line. Let's go over some lyrics from the second verse. God spoke to me, said, "Listen to me, I anoint you with the power that'll get 'em all moving." You're agitated, you prayed and meditated, you're concentrated on getting elevated. By sundown, Monday, you who come will be blessed with the big money blessing. You will be doubted by all the unbelievers on all of the things I'm addressing. Jack is rolling out a religious theme again as he satirically addresses televangelism and religious exploitation. This includes taking a stab at what's known as the prosperity gospel, as he says that followers will be blessed with the big money blessing. It's a warning to those that would be taken in by these preacher con men. This is one of my favorites on No Name. Jack, as a rapping preacher, has this vibe, and I think it's just awesome. And the song drives like muscle car in the red on an open road. It's simply fantastic. Coming up next, we have Bombing Out. Again, there's another stylistic shift as we get thrown into the mosh pit here. If there's a high-energy punk peak to the album, it's this tune. Everything is fuzzed out and turned up to 10, particularly during the choruses. The drums are played ferociously. There's also a short but great guitar solo that breaks through the mix at one point. Jack's voice is distorted and further back in the mix, like he's singing into an old Radio Shack microphone. He raps the verses and sings the choruses. Let's look at the bridge lyrics. You are the unmoved mover, and I keep moving along. You are the unmoved mover, and I just keep moving along. I was born by the river, and just like that river, I'm going to keep moving along. And you are the unmoved mover, and I will keep singing my song. That's right. The lyrics overall imply that Jack is going through some relationship or wider challenges, but he refuses to give up. He's bombing out, but he's again resilient and will continue to try to achieve his goals regardless. This is a short, fast, and bruising tune that dispels any questions about Jack's ability to still be able to rock out like it was the early 2000s. Next, we have What's the Rumpus? If there's one song that sounds like a long-lost White Stripes tune, it's probably this one. The tempo slows down to what feels slightly like a Seven Nation Army mid-tempo march. The rhythm section is steady and driving with some staccato guitar chords sitting on top of those verses. The choruses are fairly melodic with Jack's voice getting double-tracked. We get hit with another weird-sounding guitar solo that has some kind of stuttering effect on it. Here are lyrics from the chorus. I've got a feeling that the truth's become opinion these days. That train has left the station, but our love will grow. It's floor to ceiling, unappealing, but who cares what they say? 'Cause it doesn't matter who, it only matters what you know. My interpretation of the lyrical theme is that this track is about maintaining integrity in the music business, regardless of what the media or music critics have to say. Again, there seems to be that theme of resilience against attacks or challenges that get put in front of you. This is a straight-ahead Jack song channeling the vibe of the White Stripes, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's not the strongest track on No Name, but it is strong in its own right. Next, we have Tonight Was a Long Time Ago. This tune starts side B of the album. The dynamics are similar to those familiar with Jack's style, where again we get quieter verses and exploding choruses. There's a 70s vibe to this one. Go take a listen to We're an American Band by Grand Funk Railroad, and you'll know what I'm talking about. The melodies are great, the guitars sound fantastic, and Jack's vocals are some of his best. Let's take a gander at the lyrics from the chorus. She's flicking the light up on the stairs, the signal she's finally here. You have to go now before they come home. Tonight was a long time ago. The lyrics tackle the perception of an event having happened so quickly that the next thing you know, the event is over and you realize how fleeting it all was. Specifically, Jack is referring to a romantic encounter here in the chorus, but in a verse, he also refers to the time after a show is over, after there were 10,000 feet on the floor. It's a song about reflecting on peak experiences after they're over. This is another blazer with a great feel and a mood to it, and it's another highlight from No Name. A super strong start to the latter half of this album. Next is Underground. Jack whips out the slide guitar as we shift again to a slightly different vibe. This one has a very bluesy Led Zeppelin sheen to it, a la Physical Graffiti. The pace is a bit slower, but not slow. The guitars sound amazing as they occasionally double the vocals to great effect during the verses. We get a very cool melodic guitar solo during the instrumental section, and Jack delivers some vocals that are likewise echoed sporadically. The bass is again handled by Scarlett. Here are the lyrics from verse 2. All that I see, I can't repeat. When there's no one else around, no one else around. You can't be free, you can't defeat what's living underground, what's living underground. It's a bit harder to determine what Jack's on about lyrically with this song. Overall, there isn't much going on other than implying that truth is underground and hidden from our view. Maybe it's about understanding this and that it's important that we dig deeper to get into the facts on things before forming opinions on just superficialities. The clear highlight for me on Underground are the guitars with their Zeppelin provenance. It's great to hear this as a change of pace as we move through the album. Up next is Number One with a Bullet. The beginning and ending of this track has some guitar octave intervals bouncing around, but the real feature is we plunge into this Black Sabbath Paranoid-like rhythm. The quiet, loud, quiet approach is once again employed. The guitar solo uses delays and an octave effect, which is a highlight. Vocals from Jack start off a little subdued as he uses a different type of delivery than we've heard previously. This doesn't last long, though, as the choruses find him in his more normal rocker voice. Here are lyrics from the chorus. I've got information hanging by a thread, so why don't you pull it? It's an assassination of the already dead, Number One with a bullet. But the reputation of a rotten apple is too loud to hear now. Both Adam and Eve know they're naked, so we all having something to fear now. More religious imagery with Adam and Eve and an apple. I'm not quite sure what is being talked about, but it may have to do with finding the truth again. This could be a song about being able to handle the truth, though, as it may not be something we're comfortable with. Everything about this song is cool, except for the choruses, which I think are some of the weakest melodically on the album. The Paranoid-inspired chugging is especially notable. Overall, it's a meaty tune, only made slightly less tasty because of the choruses. Up next, we have Morning at Midnight. We get more bouncing staccato guitar chords, but what's different with this tune is the introduction of some organ playing that adds a great texture. The drumming is killer throughout, as are Jack's vocals. There's an instrumental break that features a descending chord progression that sounds terribly familiar, but I wasn't quite able to place it. Something Zeppelin-y again, I think. Let's look at the chorus lyrics. You know it's morning at midnight, but there ain't no sun. So what you need to do? Well, you better get done. Before the rays light up, and the birds come alive, and everybody wakes up, hey, and people start to arrive. They're coming alive. This tune is one for you third shift people working at night. It's about that time between midnight and morning when the bars let out, but you don't want to go home and go to bed. You just want to walk around for a bit. This is one of the best songs on No Name. The choruses just slam, and the melodies are pretty memorable. Now we have Missionary. This is another song that has a strong 70s punk thing going on with it. Jack's vocals sound like he's singing into that old Radio Shack microphone again, and the drums are just wonderful, especially at around 2/3 of the way in when they just go off for a few bars. The guitars are distorted but fairly straightforward for Jack. Let's check out the lyrics from the first verse. I'm backseat driving when you're driving me crazy, but I can't drive a stick, ha ha ha. I'm getting used to hearing my name. It's no longer making me sick. It's like a California vibration. It must be sweeping the nation. It's like a new sensation. Although you'd think this may be another song about religion, it's actually full of sexual double entendres. Read the full lyrics and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Jack's basically trying to get someone in the sack with him. A real fun throwback punk tune that doesn't overstay its welcome, keeping true to the best punk traditions. Even for its short runtime, there is plenty of variation and cool sounds to this song. And now we come to the last song on No Name, called Terminal Archenemy Endling. This tune starts off like a cross between Soundgarden and Led Zeppelin. The slide guitar plays a central role as the song bounces from being chilled out and moody to really powerful and fierce. Jack's vocals are probably most out front in the mix of any of the songs on No Name, and they're simply great. At the beginning and end of this track, there are also some sound effects in the background that sound like yelping dogs, which is a little weird. Anyway, let's look at the third verse. Where would I be if I didn't know you, from a factory to a country home? And what would I have if I never really had you? What's the point of being free if I'm all alone? There's a lot of interesting imagery in the lyrics, but I think at the end of the day, this is a love song. It's an appreciation of his love interest and how she has saved him in a way. It's about the transformative power of love. Probably the moodiest tune on the album. This plays perfectly as the closing track. The instrumentation, playing, and atmosphere are all there in spades. It's got that morning after come down feel to it. Another winner. So what do I think overall about this latest album from the mighty Jack White? First of all, I'm not sure anyone was expecting a new album from him this year, and to that extent, this is one of the biggest surprises of the year, for sure. It also happens to be one of the best surprises, as what we've got here is nothing short of jaw-dropping. This album is manna from heaven for rock fans, of which I certainly count myself. It's slathered in guitar goodness, high-volt energy, organic grooves, and most importantly, it's as real of a rock record or any kind of a record as we're likely to hear all year. There's no pretension, no overproduction, no distracting or stupid studio trickery. I'm looking at you, Auto-Tune. And Jack is putting on a master class for all rock bands in regards to songwriting and playing from the heart. It truly is a beautiful thing to behold, especially when it's cranked up loud enough to feel the bass in your breastbone. If you've become jaded over recent years when it comes to finding any rock album that can hold a candle to the classic rock albums of the past and even distant past, well, you can stop complaining, because No Name is a stone-cold rock and roll classic. Meet your new obsession, folks. I'm giving this stellar album a rating of 9.5 out of 10. Now, your mileage may vary. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you indifferent? And then tell me why as well in the comments. Thanks, everybody. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.